Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Monday. Mike Evans here, enjoying what is probably going to be one of the last few warmish kind of days. A little drizzly here if you're not in the New York area. You know, this is our fall. It gets a little drizzly and then the wind picks up, gets cold. Next thing you know, we're buried in snow. But I just wanted to take some time today to talk a little bit about screen time and the way that our kids interact with all of the technology and the electronica that they have available to them. This is not necessarily going to be a screens are evil broadcast. So if that's what you're looking for, some of this might support that theory, some of this might go against that theory. And we're going to kind of talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about what some of the dangers or the pitfalls are when it comes to screen time and electronics, and some of the ways that we can kind of coach our kids into a healthier relationship with them. So that being said, let's kick it off. First of all, when I say screen time, what the heck am I talking about? So when I was a kid, screen time meant I got home from school, took care of my chores, did my homework, and then I got half an hour where I could control the remote control on the TV. It was mine. I got to pick the show. After that, it was up to my sisters and, you know, who wanted to watch what they wanted to watch. Not to say I didn't watch We Sing in Sillyville for a few times, but, you know, screen time back then was very simple. There was one screen in the entire home, the family TV. So it became very easy for my parents to regulate that. The first question, is your homework done? Yeah. Chores done? Yep. Great. You can watch your half an hour of TV. Shows back then were either half an hour or an hour. So I got my half an hour cartoon that I could watch. There was no binge watching on YouTube or Netflix or anything. But nowadays, it's a little harder. So what is screen time now? Well, your child wakes up. The TV is probably on someplace in the house checking the weather or the news. I don't know why we do this, because the news is just depressing and the weather is what the weather is. Very few of us actually work outside. But, you know, we have that. They get ready. They're waiting at the bus stop. They're on their smartphone checking things out, you know, saying hello to their friends. They get to school. The smart board is on. They look at the smart board more and more. They're doing homework or even in-class work. My daughter has a Chromebook that the school gives to her. You know, some of the kids are using tablets for different projects or for games. They get home, they're playing, you know, some games, researching on Wikipedia, looking things up on YouTube for ideas of things to do. You know, this all adds up. It's all screen time. So it's not just, you know, when we think of the kid as a zombie in the corner with their tablet or their cell phone, it's all screen time. And it's really becoming ubiquitous, that it's everywhere. I mean, as I'm sitting here, I'm looking at my computer screen. There's a TV up on the wall that kind of shows what I have going on in my school. You know, there's a display in my car that has some media interaction. It's all over the place. So it becomes really hard for us to, just like in the old days, say, you get half an hour. It's almost impossible to give that limit or that parameter. And in fact, screen time limits, they're just obsolete. It's so hard to be able to do that when everything is on a screen. Until I recently left my career in telecommunications, my entire day was on a screen, programming different phone systems. You know, now as a martial artist, I do all my class planning on a screen. So to say, hey, you're just going to cut it to 15 minutes or half an hour, it's unrealistic. I mean, we also need to be able to provide the kids tools to be able to go forward into the lives they're going to live, which are probably going to be very screen-based. So we want to make sure that we are able to help them. And in order to help them, first of all, we have to understand why it's so important. Like, what are the things that are drawing them more and more? So let's understand the why before we start to look for solutions to what the problem is or what we perceive it to be. So on the surface, just speaking, you know, as a parent, as an educator, I certainly see, and I'm sure that you guys see as well, that the more screen time we let our kids have, and I'm including all of it, you know, everything I just discussed, the more just downright crankier they become, the less connected they are. Now they are more connected socially, but those connections tend to be more superficial. They're not building those deep connections with their peers, their siblings, we as their family members or parents. Kids with more screen time tend to be less empathetic, which is something that really builds their connections to humanity, makes them want to do good things more so than any rule we ever set. If we can teach them how to be empathetic, that will help them thrive. But the more screen time they have, the less empathetic they are. And I'm speaking very generally here, they tend to be less able to follow through on tasks, on assignments that we give them. But why? So if we look at the way media is created, whether it's a lesson, in fact, with a lesson, we hope it's this way, or just casual media, you know, those games, TV shows, web episodes, those sorts of things. Media creators are brilliant marketers when it comes to commanding your attention. You know, as a small business owner, I'm into a certain amount of marketing, and I know what I pay to grab your attention to market my assorted businesses. You know, on a larger scale, people that are making thousands of dollars on YouTube or millions of dollars on TV are reinvesting a vast portion of that on not only creating content, but on researching better ways to make sure that content grabs your attention. They're trying to, we use the catchphrase, turn a look into a stare or a glance into a stare. And they're great at that. So if you look at how it's crafted, whether it's a TV show, cliffhanger kind of thing, or you know, a video that you know, to us as parents, sometimes it's really annoying listening to that. That's by design. I'm going to use games just because it's a very easy example of video game. They provide a certain level of frustration. Now you'll say, well, then why does the kid want to watch it? Because what happens is it generates enough frustration, it stirs a pain, but promises a release from that pain. Now that's marketing 101. Stir a pain, provide the solution to that pain. Chemically, in your brain, when you have that pain stirred, your brain starts to respond by releasing cortisol. Now, cortisol is a catchword nowadays because it has a lot to do with weight loss, and we all know weight loss is one of the largest selling markets ever. So cortisol is thrown around a little bit because of its relationship to weight gain, but really it's a stress hormone. And it's generated anytime we are frustrated, angry, stressed, upset. So what happens is your body knows it doesn't like this. A certain amount of it is healthy, but your body doesn't like a lot of it. So it looks for ways to counteract that cortisol. And very often this is where our coping mechanisms come from. This is why we do things like stress eating, or why kids will suck their thumb, or kids will rock. You know, you see them rocking back and forth because they're self-comforting. And that's to help regulate some of that cortisol. So when you're playing that video game, you're really stressed. You have this task to accomplish that seems impossible. You're getting frustrated, but they know that if you get too frustrated, you're going to put it down. So you reach a certain level, and then they provide a reward. Your award is you reach the next level, or you reach the save point, or you unlock some feature. And that reward stimulates your body to produce dopamine. Now you get this little squirt of dopamine. And what happens is that dopamine, first of all, makes you feel good, but second of all, it counterbalances the cortisol. Cortisol makes you feel bad, dopamine covers it. It doesn't make it go away, just kind of covers it a little bit. So now they're actually marketing you on reaching a new level of frustration because you got that dopamine squirt. The thing about dopamine is you need more of it to feel the same effect, just like a drug. So now you reach a harder level. You get that new weapon or that new ability or that new whatever, but now there's another level. You know, how many times have you said to your child, you know, time to put away video games? Oh, but mom, I just need 2 more minutes. I got to level up. I just need this, and I'm going to level up, and then it'll be good. You know, it's frustrating to us as well. Now, the dopamine is the real thing that we have to worry about here. Cortisol, yeah, has its health impacts. You know, it can cause us to have loss of bone. It could cause us to put on weight. It can cause us to lose sleep. It could cause us to sacrifice our ability to learn and to remember facts. It has an effect on memory. But really, your body has ways of coping with this. Your mind has ways of dealing with it. It's the dopamine that we really have to worry about when we're talking about the screen time and whether it's an addiction or not. So now the dopamine goes away because you took away the game. Dopamine crashes. Like any withdrawal, that will make you cranky. Take away somebody's sugar for a few days. I'm going through a 21-day fitness and mindset challenge right now. As of today, I'm not allowed to have any sugar. It makes me a little cranky. It's an addiction that I have that I'm trying to break. Gives me headaches. When your child has a headache, they're not going to want to be very nice. So that dopamine response and the dopamine crash are concerns. These are reasons why we want to help our kids. Another one is sleep. So at night, or even in the late evening, artificial light, especially blue light, suppresses the release of melatonin from your pineal gland. Now, here's what happens. During the day, you're out in the sunshine. Artificial light does it to a certain extent, but it's not the best for you. You're out in the sunshine and your body creates melatonin all day, or serotonin all day. Creates the serotonin, stores it up, and then when it's time to go to sleep, your natural circadian rhythm says, all right, release that. It converts it over to melatonin, and that stimulates sleep. So blue light, which that's what our devices are putting out, those LED screens, the OLEDs, the AMOLEDs, they're all putting out bright, focused blue light. Even when you put it on night mode, like my iPad has this, it's called night vision, and it makes everything look red. It's still a blue light base, just most of the blue saturation is taken out. But even little bits affect your body's ability to release and release serotonin and create melatonin from it. So that throws off your circadian rhythm, which is what controls when you're awake, when you're asleep. It makes it harder for you to get to sleep, and it makes it so that the quality of sleep is lower. Cranky kid, a little bit of sleep, put the two together, now you've got a crankier kid. So we want to make sure that we are limiting screen time, especially the half hour or the hour before bed, and we want to make sure that they don't have those screens at night. Now, another thing that is a little more social and a little more psychological is instant gratification. And you'll see on the screen it says eating the marshmallow, and I'm going to explain that in just a second. Some of you may already know about this. So when we have constant access to our devices, we get trained to be able to find things out immediately. Hey, what's the weather in Singapore right now? Let me pick up my phone here. No, oh, it's 22 degrees. Oh, that's Celsius though. Oh, it's Celsius to Fahrenheit. Oh, that's pretty cool. Well, what's the weather tomorrow? Today? What do I got to wear? Next thing you know, you're in this thing where you're just down the rabbit hole. You know, you're looking for that instant gratification. You go on your social media. You say, oh man, I'm sorry. I was supposed to just check Facebook for something. Oh, I got a like. Bam, let me post something else. I'll get another like, oh, I got a friend request. So it's that instant gratification. We're looking for those things right away. It becomes a cure for boredom. It stimulates dopamine. There's that dopamine again. Now, dopamine is not necessarily a bad thing. Dopamine is a very good thing. But when it becomes a crutch, this is where it becomes a bad thing. So, casual screen time, not your homework, not office work, but this casual, let me just see what's happening on Facebook. It becomes a default activity for not getting stimulation. Your body craves that dopamine, especially if we've been feeding it for this long. So your body craves it. I go online, bam, I see that little notification that I got a friend request or a message from somebody cool, or somebody liked my status. It's instant gratification. It stimulates that dopamine. I feel good. And here's where don't eat the marshmallow comes in, or eating the marshmallow. So there was a study done, and what they did was they tracked a series of kids, first of all, over a course of about 10 to 15 minutes, and then over the next 10 years. The immediate experiment was that they brought the kids into a room with a plate, and on the plate was a single marshmallow. And they said, you can eat the marshmallow if you like. It'll be yummy. It's a good marshmallow, nothing wrong with it. But if you can wait 15 minutes until we get back with without eating that marshmallow, we'll give you another marshmallow, and then you'll have two. But if you eat that marshmallow now, that's all you get. Now, if you search this, don't eat the marshmallow on YouTube, there's a really cute video of the kids actually going through this experiment. And you'll see that some of the kids, as soon as the researcher walks out of the room, that marshmallow is gone. Some of the kids look at it and they come up at table level and they sniff it and they play with it. And one of the kids licks it and puts it back down. Some of the kids just push that marshmallow to the side and they wait. And the experiment goes on and they thank everybody. And the kids that didn't eat that marshmallow, they give them another marshmallow. Now the kid has 2 marshmallows and he's happy. But then they tracked that child over the next 10 to 15 years and they found that the kids who were more able to not eat the marshmallow, the kids who were able to delay gratification, overall were far more successful in life. They had better relationships. They had lower levels of debt. They had better jobs overall. Now that does not necessarily mean they had college jobs but better jobs. They were more satisfied with their jobs and their relationships. So the ability to delay gratification is extremely important when we look at future success. Most media outlets are the exact opposite, looking for immediate gratification. So something we want to be aware about creates a sort of collective narcissism where it becomes about us and our needs to feel satisfied. But then the sidebar of that is that we start to then find value in ourselves and in our relationships based on that gratification. We objectify ourselves. There's a lot of talk about objectifying women or objectifying race. We tend to objectify ourselves when we have this media-induced instant gratification. So that's not a healthy relationship within ourselves. And in fact, if you go onto Facebook right now, I guarantee you could probably scroll down, or you've probably recently seen one of your friends saying, I'm going on an unfriending binge. If you haven't interacted with me, if you haven't liked my posts, if you haven't commented, I'm unfriending you. Because they see the value of the relationship based on that like, that click of the button. Not realizing that Facebook has an algorithm that, I have between my various media outlets, I have thousands of friends on multiple continents, and Facebook can't show me all of them. So it shows me the ones it thinks I will like the most, not the ones that it thinks they'll like me the most. They have their own algorithm. So, realizing this, stepping aside, it's obvious that not everybody will like my stuff. But there are a lot of people that mistake this instant gratification, this need for that dopamine boost of getting that like or that comment or that share as the actual relationship. So I'm sure you see that day to day in your lives among adults. Kids are even more impressionable. So we know this. We know there's this dopamine thing. There's this screen time at night thing affecting our sleep. There's the way it affects our relationships and our self-worth. And it's really hard to break all these things because this is so intrinsic to who I am, my own chemicals and hormones, my own self-worth and self-view, my own relationships. So it's so hard for me to break this cycle. But is it really an addiction? So scientifically speaking, the jury is still out. There are people that say yes. There are people that say no. In Asia, for example, there are clinics, there are approved diagnoses, there are separate hospital wards for internet addiction. But if we look at that, we could see that some of that, and I don't mean to sound stereotypical, this is absolutely not, but some of that is culturally based. Asian cultures thrive on gaming. Even before there were electronics, there were the pachinko machines and so on. So there's a lot of cultural bias that might, we never know completely, but it might play into that. In America lately, they've stopped kind of looking at it as addiction or even as a diagnosis and kind of looking at it as a syndrome, which is just kind of a collection of symptoms. So the new description that I've seen coming around is PMIS, problematic media interactivity syndrome. Sounds really big and bad. But what that really means is that, problematic just means, hey, it's something we should pay attention to. There's some sort of problem. Media, because it's not just TV, it's not just the smartphones, it's not just casual screen time, it's all of these things we've talked about so far. And interactivity, because it's not just that I'm watching, we have that thought of the child just mindless in front of a TV. Another interesting YouTube thing you could look up is one researcher took video of kids watching TV, not showing the screen, just the kids' faces. It's really disturbing. But it's this whole idea that we have a social problem with screen time and media interactivity. And with this, they actually break it into 4 categories, and they measure each independently before they put them together. So the first category is obviously gaming, very popular nowadays, and statistically this affects boys the most. There is social media, so Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, Whisper, all these things. And as a parent, you should be aware of all of them. There are new ones coming up all the time. Some of them are completely anonymous, which has its own set of snares and pitfalls. Social media tends to be predominantly girls. So you want to check your daughters. Pornography is the third one. Now, interestingly, pornography is equally split between boys and girls. And finally is knowledge delving. Now, this is my personal one. That's where you just follow it down the rabbit hole. I want to know something. I ask Alexa, I ask Google, I am on checking things out. And before you know it, I'm learning about how frogs' tongues stick to the flies and what flies think about and why does time fly? And well, that's usually in Latin. And how come Latin is a dead language if we still, it's this, we just get lost in it. So those are the 4 categories: gaming, social media, pornography, and this knowledge acquisition. Just an interesting side note, how it affects us. And this is not a judgment call on anybody's internet use, but due directly to, this is something I just heard on a doctor's radio program within the past few days, due directly to higher levels than ever of teen pornography viewing. Now, this is not, when I was a kid, it was Stick Mom Spiegel catalog bra section under the mattress. This is like their smartphone is connected 24/7. So due to the levels that teens are watching pornography nowadays, young adult erectile dysfunction levels are skyrocketing. They think it's a psychological connection. They haven't really done that research yet, but it's just an interesting fact that ties into this. So is it all an addiction? It's hard to measure. Usually addiction, oh, I got the train going by. Sorry for that. Usually with addiction, they're looking for measuring some sort of physiological change in what happens during the dependency, what happens during the consumption, what happens physiologically during withdrawal. And it's really hard with screen time. First of all, it's new. We're not sure how to measure it. We're not really sure how it affects us. These are long-term studies have just kind of started happening because it's only within the past generation or so that we've had all this. So the general consensus among treating professionals, clinical professionals, is that it's generally better to focus on helping than labeling. So it might be an addiction, it might not. The jury is out, but we're not going to wait. We're going to start helping now. So how can we help? First of all, like anything else with kids, the very first step is to connect with them. Let them know this is not a punishment. This is you talking about their needs, their desires, their wants, because it's not evil. It's just a tool. And we want to have an open discussion. If we start off with blaming and construction and like just reconstructing their lives, we're going to hit a barrier. So we need to connect with our children first. Talk with them, discuss it with them, educate. Let them know about the dangers, but also let them know it's not all evil. It's just a tool that we can use in different ways. Now, last week I did a video about helping your shy child get past their shyness. And this is one of those ways, I've been talking about the evils so far, but here's one time that the internet might be a positive tool. With a lot of shy kids, they might want to start off a relationship not face-to-face, by text, by messenger app, on social media. And that is a tool that will allow them outlet without the crushing fear or anxiety that they have with face-to-face. So it can be a very positive tool, but it's very important to keep that open conversation so that we make sure it is not a crutch or not a something that's going to take us to the dark side. So what do? First of all, we want to make sure that we are monitoring midnight messages. Remove access to those phones if necessary at night. Kids who are not sleeping are not going to make good decisions. They're going to have more cortisol. They're going to need more, whether it's dopamine or endorphins or whatever, to overcome that cortisol. Even the light of the phone by the bedside can be enough to disrupt sleep patterns. So make sure phones are face down. I know a lot of kids, my own included, they use the phone as an alarm clock. Make sure it's face down. Don't let that light interrupt their sleep patterns. If you find that they cannot leave that phone alone and they are text messaging their friends at 3 in the morning, time to buy them an alarm clock. The alarm clocks tend to use red light anyway, probably a healthier option. Next, we want to provide a little coaching for them. We want to make sure that we're working as a team with them. And one of the things that you can do is include them in the decision-making process. That, first of all, empowers them, gives them a sense of control over their lives, and it makes it more likely that the plan is going to stick. So here's what you do. Coach them that each day is an empty container, an empty vessel just waiting to be filled, and you're going to fill it. Now, here's another YouTube video. See how I'm using these YouTube videos as positive tools about the professor that fills the mayonnaise jar, the coffee jar, whatever it is, with rocks, and then asks if it's full, then puts in the gravel, asks if it's full, the sand, the water, so on and so forth. And you learn about putting the big important things first. Work with your kids to actually do this. Help them fill in times for the big things. School, time to spend with their friends, time to play sports if they're involved in sports, or for martial arts, my particular sport of choice. Make sure there's time for everything that they want to do. Things that they want to do that there's a conflict. Now they can see on the calendar, well, I want to play with Johnny, but I also want to go to the trampoline park. All right, maybe I could go to trampoline park on Thursday and let them play around with it a little bit. Then, after everything they want to do is on that schedule, now, where do we want to fit your casual screen time? When do you want to go to the movies? When do you want to catch up on Daredevil? When do you want to message your friends who live in another country? We don't have pen pals anymore, but I certainly have friends that live in other countries. That's where you fill in that casual screen time. After all the big and important things, the relationships, the responsibilities, the chores, all of that is filled in. Now we put in that screen time. And you'll actually be surprised when you do it that way, how much your kids actually want to do, how many other things they think about besides just that screen. Remember, that screen time, casual screen time, is a default. It's what they do when there's nothing else to do. Another thing, and this is going to require a little effort on the entire family's part. Family mealtime is something that as a society, as a culture, especially in America, we're kind of losing. But it's very important. This is where we learn about relationships, where we model behaviors, where we're in a safe space that we can vent and not have somebody take us down or unfriend us. Oh, fine, you're blocked. That doesn't happen at family dinner. We might not talk to each other for a couple days, but you know what? Next family dinner, I'm sitting there staring at you and I want the mashed potatoes. I'm going to have to talk to you to get the mashed potatoes. So family mealtime is very important. No screens, not on the table, not next to the table on the little, what do you call that counter that's next to, I don't know, not next on the counter. Put away, put it in the other room, turn the ringers off. You don't need the screen at dinner. This is time to talk, time to joke around, time to complain, time to argue, but time to connect. At least try to do it once a week. If you can do it once a day, even better. It'll bring the whole family together as a unit. It will help the kids build those social bonds, those social cues, those relationships that then will spread out to the rest of their lives. Most importantly, you need to model the behavior that you would like to see in your child. Be sure that when you are paying attention to them, it is focused attention. Put down your phone. Don't just look up from it. Put it down. face down, listen to what they have to say, provide the answer. When that interaction is done, the person that is in front of you is more important than the person on the screen. When that interaction with them is done, then go back to your screen. Be able to explain to them that sometimes it is not appropriate to put down the screen. Maybe it's work. If you're on call or you're providing professional input or there's an emergency, even a family emergency, those things are important. And we want to be able to explain to them about what is healthy use and what is legitimate work and what I can put away for later so that they can better connect. Let them know, hey, I'm going to put this away so that I can listen to you. Even just saying that, they will feel more connected to you, because ultimately, kids are going to do what they see you do. They are less likely to do what they hear you say. So if you're a smoker and you tell kids not to smoke, guess what? You are more likely to have a smoking child. That's just how it works. But if you are a smoker who has health issues and puts down the cigarettes, explains to your child why you've done it, you are more likely to have a child who stays away from the cigarettes because they saw what you did. You went through the trials and tribulations and you got away from it. Now you're healthy. So we want to make sure that you are modeling the behavior that you would like to see in your child. This also becomes a little difficult sometimes. I'm an avid reader, and it's something I always try to model for my child, for my daughter. She loves to read. She struggled with it for a little while, got some great teachers at school, really helped her out, and now she loves to read as well. Here's where it becomes the gray area. I prefer reading in a book. I like the feel, the smell, the texture, the sensation of turning pages, the anticipation of turning pages. But most of my reading material is on my iPad. So how do I say, put down the technology before bed if I'm not doing it myself? So that's something that maybe I will do my casual reading on Sundays when it's family day and we kind of chill out around the house on my iPad. But at night, maybe I'll do something more constructive and read a hardcover book or one of my entrepreneurial books that tend to be hardcover. So it sneaks into lives in insidious ways. You just have to kind of be aware of it so you don't get but you do it. Be aware of what you're doing as a model. As always, with anything to do with children, consistency is key. We want to make sure that we recognize that it takes time, especially if your child is already kind of engulfed in this digital world. It's going to take time to reverse it, more so than if I was just starting off fresh. The best time to start these healthy habits is right from the beginning when your child is an infant or a toddler. The second best time is right now. Take it easy. It's a lot to teach a child who's, they're already struggling to find their place in the world. They're already struggling to figure out who they are, what they like, how they're going to define themselves, what things stimulate them, what's right, what's wrong. They're struggling with all these things. So we want to make sure we take our time. This has to be nurturing. If I put on the iron glove and lay down the law, I'm going to get pushed back. It's going to be a negative experience. We want to nurture them. We want to lead them toward health, not drive them away from punishment. So I don't want to say, you are on your screen for 16 minutes instead of 15. You're punished. Negative experience. But if I've coached them already, say, hey, remember, we wanted to do this on your schedule. So in 5 minutes, make sure you start wrapping up whatever game it is. Make sure you save, level, whatever you got to do, because 5 minutes from now, we're going to go do this other thing that you said you wanted to do. People don't argue with their own information. They're more likely to then say, oh, this was something I wanted to do. Let me go do it. Make it a positive experience. So if you got some value out of this, go ahead and hit that like button first of all. But more importantly, if you're struggling with this, or your child really has some challenges in this area, I would love to help you out a little more in your specific case. So you can comment down below. Let me know what's going on. If you have some tips and tricks, and here's one that actually I got from one of the parents here in my martial arts school and from one of my mentors. It's interesting how it lined up almost within the same week. For every 15 minutes of screen time, supplement that with something else. Here's why. And this just came to me. I'm sorry I didn't include it earlier. We said that the games stimulate cortisol. We use the dopamine of the success to override and mask that. Your other feel-good chemicals last longer and actually do better at inhibiting cortisol. So one of the parents of my students came up with this idea to help her daughter do better in our physical challenges on the training floor, has her do exercise to earn the screen time. So she's getting the benefit of doing the exercise. She sees the benefit of that when she comes into class, but then she also recognizes that if I want screen time, I need the exercise. What she probably doesn't realize, and that I learned from one of my mentors, Melody Schumann, is that exercise it stimulates endorphin release. So what happens now is the endorphins override cortisol far better. So if you're not going to buy screen time, have it interlaced with exercise time. So if you're not going to buy it by saying, all right, do 15 laps around the kitchen and crab walk, whatever it is, to earn your 15 minutes of screen time, just make it part of the screen time. And what Melody does is she said she loves Candy Crush. And for every 15 minutes of Candy Crush, she does 15 minutes on her rowing machine. So it balances out the chemical dependencies. So there's something, a tip that I actually got back from one of the parents. So if you have something like that, if you have a tip that's worked for you to kind of ease your children away from screens, let us all know so that we can all benefit for it. Put that in the comments as well. And of course, if you know anybody that can benefit from any of this information, hit that share button. That is the highest form of dopamine boost for content creators like myself. So you'll be helping me out a little bit. Next week, I'll have another Monday message. If there are particular challenges you're facing, let me know. You can put them here. You can message me, email me, whatever. And if it's something that I feel I can help with, I'll help you out. If not, I'll try to point you towards somebody that can. Hope you guys have a great day. I have to go prepare for classes in a little while, so I am cutting my screen time. See you later.